Hey, this is Eric McCoy with the only podcast that promotes highness, but wants to remind everybody that highness comes from within, not from drugs. I call this recovering through highness. The only way that I'm going to stay high for the rest of my life is by being clean and sober. So I have a special guest today, and I want to say that she was a huge inspiration in the book that I wrote of Pain, Failure, and Misery are the Stepping Stones to Success. Her name is Jodi Barber, and Jodi created 2 documentaries. One was called Overtaken. The other one was Overtaken 2. Where Are They Now? So we met when I was a partner of a rehab in Lake Elsinore. I don't remember how we met exactly.
We met at a Starbucks, I remember, with Jeremy, I think it was.
That's right.
With Jeremy Jackson?
Jeremy Jackson. Okay.
I think that's when we first met.
I think so. Yeah. Oh, I think we talked on the phone first. I think maybe I saw something on Facebook or something, and that's probably how we ultimately connected.
Okay. Yeah.
I think I was interested in Overtaken in the documentary.
Okay.
So sadly we closed, and the reason that we closed was because I wasn't willing to fall into all the fraudulent stuff that was going on in the industry, so it was difficult for me to get clients. And it was literally the day after I closed that I started writing that book. So Jodi, I want to tell you that the selfish nature of addiction, when people are ultimately using, right, harms obviously the families more than it harms the individuals. And that was one of the reasons, again, that this was kind of an inspiration for me, in writing this book. So I want to thank you for coming.
Oh, thank you for having me. Thank you for saying that. That's very sweet.
And it's been an honor, sitting with you and watching you present, Overtaken at a couple of different rehabs that I had you come to, and the school that I was teaching at. And so I want to start out for the listeners. I wanted to see if you could explain the story of your son and what had happened.
Yes. Oh, gosh. So my son, Jared, started with the marijuana smoking, and he was getting in trouble. This was junior year in high school, actually. And he started, though, when he was a freshman in high school. But we caught him in his bedroom with a friend smoking when we came home from dinner, and talked to him for 2 hours, and he cried, and he said he'd never do it again. But he continued. And then we started drug testing him, and we started getting calls from the police, from the sheriff saying, okay, your son is in a friend's backyard, and the neighbors called the police, and, we had to go and get him. He's driving in the car with friends that are smoking or that had pot, and they got pulled over, and now we're having to pick him up from a holding cell at 17. Things are going on, and senior year in high school, the proctor on campus said, let's go check your car, and found a joint, and I was just like, oh my God, I want him to graduate from high school, and I don't know what to do about this issue with marijuana. My husband and I really were clueless what to do with this. Friends had their medical cards, so it was really easy to get. Oh, Jared, him and his marijuana. He loved it. He really did. He said, I don't get high off it. This is my medicine. It calms me. It just makes me feel good. I mean, he even wanted to work at the, at the clinics, and I said, absolutely not, Jared. No. So the marijuana issue was, I thought, my only problem with Jared. He got a DUI after turning 18, totaled his car. They only found marijuana in the system. He went to jail overnight. Now he has a DUI, and things were even happening after that. So I had no clue that he was actually getting pills from some friends who were seeing a dirty doctor in Rowland Heights. And I didn't know that. I had no idea that. I thought it was marijuana the whole time when Jared was getting into some trouble like that DUI. I saw the video of the whole arrest. It took about 2 hours to arrest him. The testing, and everything they did in that video that the sheriff said, they gave that to me. And he couldn't walk that line. And it didn't look like just marijuana. It looked like something else. But they didn't test him for anything else. They didn't test him to see if he maybe had...
What do you think he might have been taking?
Xanax, I think. I know Xanax was very popular back then with the boys, with the girls, with the kids, with the teenagers. They were getting it from doctors and also Selmas and Narcos. Those pills were popular back then. And so I learned a lot after my son passed away. So it didn't just start with opioids. It gradually increased increased to something stronger, and that was a nightmare. So Jared's, personality was changing. I found him nodding off in the backyard at 3 a.m. When I saw that, I knew he was on something stronger than marijuana. And it took 2 hours to get him to bed and talk to him the next day. He didn't want rehab. So we really didn't know what to do with him at that point. But we went to a psychologist, and the psychologist referred us to, quote, best doctor in Orange County. and
Was this the one I visited?
Yes, it was.
Yeah,
my God.
I will say this real quick. So I finally did post the video that I had done, and I did go meet with this doctor just to see how easy it was to get, potentially the drugs that I was looking for.
And that's why I'm laughing, because I appreciate you doing that. That was crazy that you wanted to check him out, and I'm glad you did, and you witnessed what he's like.
I wish that we could exploit these doctors.
Yeah.
I really do. I wish that, unfortunately the law says that you can't, because it's like defamation of character or harming a business, even though potentially this guy is dangerous.
I tried to get a bill passed a few years back in regards to that. I think that every person that walks into a doctor's office should be able to know if that doctor was on a probation.
Well, and I did on that video that I pulled up. Obviously, you don't see it in the doctor's office, but I was able to pull up on the American Medical Board's website the information on him and the full printout of the probation and the whole story that was behind this doctor. But a lot of people don't know that, and a lot of people don't look into it, which I think is very important. And just like you said, is to know that, has this guy done unethical things? Has he done things that potentially could be dangerous? Because they're not always looking out for your best interest.
No, and if I would have known that he was on a 5-year probation in the past for reckless prescribing, I wouldn't have gone to had my son go to him. I wouldn't have done that. I didn't know this. So that doctor just overprescribed, more pills to Jared to get him off pills. And so he promised us at the first visit that all your cravings to marijuana and to opioids, Opana, oxymorphone in particular, that Jared was hooked on, would go away by taking, anti-anxiety, antidepressants. And so that's what started the whole thing with Jared on the antidepressants, anti-anxiety medications, and I'm monitoring and, doing what the doctor is telling me to do and giving him 1 a day and then 2 a day and then, monitoring them. But
the doctor just kept increasing it?
So, basically Klonopin, which is a benzodiazepine, it's like Xanax, similar to Xanax. Jared now asked for 2 a day. He said it wasn't working. He needed to increase it. And the doctor said, no problem. I said, are you sure? Yeah, no problem. So I'm giving them 1 in the morning and 1 at night. Now he's taking 2 Klonopin, as well as the Cymbalta that he was prescribed. And this started in October. So Jared was relapsing on Opana in between. And Thanksgiving Day, Christmas Day, he was a mess on both those days. And then 2 days before he passed away, so this was October, and then Jared passed in January in 3 months. And 2 days before he passed away was when the doctor prescribed 1 more pill. And he said, take Seroquel. And he not only said take 1, he said take 4 Seroquel, 3 to 4 each night.
What was the milligram?
It was a low milligram dose, but
that stuff puts a horse out.
Exactly. Yeah. So Jared was given sample boxes the 2 days before, and I was in the waiting room. I went to every visit except that day. I was in the waiting room. Doctor should have given me the samples. He gave them to Jared, and I thought he gave them all to me, Jared, but he actually kept 1 box. And so then that was January 6th of 2010, and then January 8th in the middle of the night, 3 in the morning, my husband woke up and called me downstairs because he couldn't wake him. And Jared was sitting on the couch, barely breathing. And he was in a drug-induced coma. And anyway, the first responders ambulance came, worked on him. My husband did CPR. I called 911, the whole thing, and rushed him to the hospital. And Jared passed away at 3:47 a.m. And then we had to go home and tell his 15-year-old brother the news. And I immediately called his friend that he was with that night. 2 friends he was with on the couch when we said goodnight at 11 o'clock, and they left him at 12:30 because they thought sleeping. He was snoring, and they tried to wake him, and they couldn't. And I understand that. They really thought he was sleeping, but he wasn't. He was in a coma. So I don't hold them to blame. What Jared had did, he relapsed again on Opana, and they crushed it, and they shared it. They cut it up into quarters, and they shared it. So the quarter of Opana, he took the 3 Seroquel as prescribed, and that was prescribed. That's what really did it. The 3 to 4 Seroquel prescribed to him. He had, like I said, relapsed on Christmas Day and Thanksgiving. He didn't have the Seroquel in the system when he relapsed, but the Seroquel, taken 3 of those as prescribed with the Klonopin, 2 Klonopin in the system. He had like 6 pills from that one doctor alone. And then the Opana came from the other doctor that was a very dirty doctor out in Rowland Heights, and she overprescribed to thousands of people, like 27,000 pills over a 3-year period. The line was out the door. She had an overdose in her bathroom. She knew what she was doing, and she didn't care. And her name's Dr. Lisa Singh, and she's in jail for the rest of her life, 30 years to life.
Wow. Mm-hmm. How many died through her, do you know?
I don't know how many people have died that saw her, but what I do know is that she destroyed probably maybe thousands of lives. I mean, we'll never know, like the Jareds out there who indirectly got the pills from her office, because he didn't have cash. And it was all cash related. So his friends had cash and they saw her. But Jared, if he had cash, he would have seen her too. So they given 300 in a bottle. 200, 150 in a bottle. I mean, the pills were out there. And so we don't know how many lives she actually did destroy or kill or murder, who are still out there, homeless, still trying to get clean today from seeing her. We won't know.
How much blame do you put towards the doctor that I saw?
How much blame?
Yeah.
Well, I actually, here's the thing. I actually went into the other doctor, Dr. Lisa Singh's office, and I had a poster of kids, 24 faces of kids who passed away. And I asked her first thing, I said, tell me something, do they look familiar to you? All these kids, half of them on the poster, more than half, saw her. And I said, do any of these kids look familiar? Take a good look. And I said, although it was my son's choice and his friends to abuse, to misuse the pills, you were the professional and you knew better.
They were the drug dealers, in a sense.
Yeah. And now the doctor that you saw, that doctor prescribing antidepressants, anti-anxiety medications without any testing whatsoever, without knowing, without realizing that mixing a benzodiazepine such as Klonopin to an addict, or maybe Jared wasn't an addict. I don't think he was actually, from what I've been told from his friends. But anyway, the fact that Jared was hooked and addicted to an opioid is dangerous. You don't mix benzos with opioids or opiates. You don't mix those two. It's deadly. It's a deadly combination.
When I went and saw that doctor, I was curious on how easy it was going to be to get Adderall, because ultimately that's what I was trying to get, because I knew how to play the game. And so I originally went in there and he gave me, what was the medication that...
Cymbalta?
No, he
Pristique.
gave Pristique. So he started me on Pristique, and then he said, take this, gave me a sample, opened up his cabinet just full of drugs from top to bottom, samples, and gave me, a few days sample and cut the pill in half. I remember watching the video and put it in a bindle, and gave it to me.
Oh my God. Oh my gosh.
And so, it's all in that video, and puts it up in a bindle, gives it to me, says, okay, call me, in a few days and let me know how that is. And then we'll look at maybe putting you on Wellbutrin, and then we'll deal with your ADHD, because I was playing the signs and symptoms. I can't focus, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And the second time that I went back, he gave me 3 prescriptions for Adderall. He gave me 3 months worth of prescriptions for Adderall, the maximum dose.
Oh. Oh, that's nice. Oh gosh. Yeah.
And of course, not doing any testing. I mean, he really didn't. He just asked questions and I just answered him knowing exactly what to say.
Sure.
Being obviously in this industry for as many years as I have and being and knowing what Adderall does and knowing what the benefits are, I can't focus. I can't concentrate. I'm jittery. That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so it was easy. It was very easy.
Crazy. Yeah. So I have so many stories, about this doctor from other people now, and they all have told me pretty much like the horror stories. The pills that were prescribed, are the same ones. The Adderall that was prescribed to them, and the Prestique, and the Cymbalta, and the Seroquel. It's like this is what he loves to prescribe all the time to all these clients. It's pretty sad. Today's on another 5-year probation. So
he is again?
Yeah.
What for this time?
They just said reckless prescribing. So
really?
Yeah, they just slap him on the hand.
How does he not lose his license? I don't get that. I was on that website, on the American Medical Board's website. I was curious one day, and I'm going through all of these things, and there were many of them that had been convicted of felonies that still have their license. There are a ton of. I mean, it's crazy how many people on there that have been convicted of crimes, even, and insanity. I mean, the doctor that I went to, went into a psychotic state, prescribing himself Seroquel.
Yeah,
getting tasered 4 times.
Yeah,
which is what the report says, and does not lose his license.
No,
I don't understand.
I don't either. I don't get that. It doesn't make sense. I mean, what's it going to take? What's it going to take?
Kill a bunch of people.
Right. So yeah, so I do partially hold him to blame for my son's death because, like I said, benzodiazepines mixed with opioids is a deadly combination. There was no testing to prove Jared wasn't a depressed kid. He did have the anxiety from from the marijuana and everything he was doing. But how about saying something more holistic, referring him to, take some yoga classes or get some counseling, but no.
Or doing more testing to see if it's legit.
Yeah, do some testing. Yeah, he had no testing whatsoever done.
And he's not even a psychiatrist.
No, but he called himself one, yeah.
He's a family doctor is what he is on the American Medical Board's website. So he doesn't even have the expertise in the
addiction field
and psychiatry, because that's what he does.
Yeah.
I went in there, I remember going in there, and it's just a big desk, big cabinet full of drugs, and a couch, and just answering a lot of questions. I mean, it was almost literally, I could go in there and be like, can I get some Adderall? Can I get some Klonopin? Can I get some Trazodone?
Yeah, here you go.
Writing up prescriptions,
Yeah, just that easy.
Yeah.
And to prescribe to all ages, really 18 and over. I have fathers who were calling him up and saying, please, begging this doctor to not prescribe any more or wean off these pills, wean him off, because my son's now an addict and addicted and a mess and it's a nightmare. Can you please start weaning him off of these pills? And he says, I can't make that decision. Your son's over, 18 or over. I can't. No. Well, yes, he can. He is the doctor and he's a professional. Start helping them, get off of this stuff. I mean, the Adderall, we know how it's abused, in college. That these kids are calling me up and asking me to help them off of it. Adderall.
Yeah. That is a common, it helps you focus and it helps you study, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's scary. It's really scary. And then that doctor, Jared, I found out, later that Jared told him that he did try Adderall. So he must have taken it from his friend who was on it, taking Adderall. He actually, that friend was legitimate. I mean, he had Ritalin when he was little and then, then the Adderall too. And Jared took it from his friend. But he told that doctor that he had, so he was...
Did he prescribe it? Did Jared get Adderall or
no? No. But he had taken it in the past from a friend. So, but he let that doctor know that. So I'm surprised the doctor didn't say, well, you want some more? I'm surprised he didn't say that. Maybe he did, and Jared said no. But I don't know. It's just...
So when I teach clients and I work with people, I talk about this concept of transforming, this transformation. And what that basically means is creating new meanings out of your past or out of painful things or, horrible things and making them something that's of benefit. And that idea is something that I think about with you. And I asked you that question, how does a mother move on after losing her son? Because I had discussed this with, I did the podcast with my wife. I remember when I was in high school and there was a kid that died in a car accident while drunk, and it literally destroyed his family. His parents lost their jobs. They ended up divorcing. They lost her house. And so much of this revolved around the loss of the kid. Mm-hmm. And it destroys families. And sadly, and one of the reasons, again, you were a huge inspiration for me was I was thinking about, especially, there's about 72,000 Americans that die a year, close to that, 70, 72, of a drug overdose. And every single one of them, they have families that have to deal with this loss. And as I've gotten clean and sober and worked through all the stuff that I had gone, I thought a little bit more about my family and about my parents and the pain and stuff that I had put them through all of those years. I was arrested 4 times before I turned 18. I had my parents having to deal with all that stuff and probably been arrested 10 times in my life. And I know my family was, always in this spot of he may die. No. He may not make it. So being clean and sober today and moving away from the selfishness that really does come, but it also relates to that word that you talk about, the documentary, Overtaken, that those drugs overtake. Mm-hmm. The brains. It really does. And I kind of relate it in my book to that Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Clean and sober, I'll do anything for you. I'll help you. And I put meth in my system, just a little, just once. And I'm gone. I'm literally gone. I will rob from you. I will do, because I need to support my habit. That drug, methamphetamine, literally takes me over. It's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Yeah. And so that's moving away from that selfishness. And I asked you that question again, and I put that quote into my book about how does a mother lose her son and move on? Yeah.
I know. Sadly, I know so many moms and dads and a lot of the parents have divorced, and actually a couple of the moms committed suicide. And it's devastating. But, we moved on. We have a son, Blake, and Blake brings us joy and happiness. And Blake, would it be fair to Blake if I laid in bed all day? If I became depressed and didn't go on with life? Would that be fair to Blake, who is here? No. And would my son Jared want that? No. Jared wouldn't. Jared wouldn't want that. And I always know that. That's just a given. Because Jared loved me so much. He told me every day that he loved me. And he wants us happy. And he wants Blake happy, and he wants his dad happy. And knowing, I don't think I ever took the time to grieve. Honestly, I grieve every day. Of course I grieve, but I never took the time to...
It kind of set you on fire in a sense. To me, it seems like that.
It changed me. Let's just say it just changed me. The second it happened, I was a changed person because I thought to myself, and I asked my husband how and why did it happen? And that just brought out this whole different person in me. How did this happen? How? And I needed to find out why and how. There's a documentary on Netflix, and it's called The Pharmacist. Everyone should watch it. It's amazing. True story about a pharmacist. And he lost his son, who was on drugs, but he was actually trying to get his drugs, and he was killed. But he was going after the person that did it. But he was also going after the dirty doctor that was over-prescribing. His mission was kind of like my mission, and there's so many parents out there that you just change on a level that you never thought, the strength that you never thought you'd have, and become this advocate and try to stop it because it was preventable. And that's the first thing my husband and I said. Jared, this happened to Jared, and it was so preventable. It was so preventable. And so I had a lot of questions that I needed answered. And And I felt like I needed to save other kids, and save these families from going through this devastation. And so with that said, that's how I have, moved on, is just like my energy level is up there, trying to save lives. And it's important.
Yeah, every time I see you, you're always happy. You always seem happy, which I think is great. I mean, I know you grieve, and obviously, there's probably sad moments, but you always...
I try to, I was born a happy person, and I came from a good family, and I'm blessed to have had the 19 years with Jared, and to have a loving husband, and to have, a beautiful son, Blake, here. So you got to turn your mindset around, and that's what I've always done. You got to turn, the negative into a positive, and turn your mindset around, because I do have my moments. I really do. And I don't like to share those moments. I don't like to share to the public that I'm depressed, when I am. So I guess I hide that. But believe me, I do the presentations, as you know, and I now have learned to hold my tears back, because for like the first 5 years I wasn't, and oh my God, brutal. My skin under my eyes have gotten so damaged that I couldn't even go out in public, until they healed. My skin healed for about a week. So anyway, but yeah, for the majority, I am a happy person,
I did that chapter too on love, let our voices echo, right? And I kind of did that, and that's where I think I actually have the quote from you. I think it was in that chapter, let our voices echo. And I've always thought that it would be really fantastic if more families would stand up and would speak and would talk about it, about the loss of their kids, loss of friends.
Yeah.
That there was more, I even put it in the book in the sense that in a funeral, you're at a funeral with somebody, talk about it, bring it up. Mm-hmm. This is how the person died, because maybe we can save somebody.
Exactly.
But so many, I've been to a lot of funerals, for people that died of drug overdoses and things like that, but nobody talks about it. Nobody says anything. It's all fluff in a sense,
Right.
And it's the shame is really where it comes down to. And that's one of my big passions, is the fact that we need to remove the shame. We need to remove the hatred. We need to remove this stuff, because it's never going to be solved. Every time that problems are solved through rage or anger, you're not going to get good solutions.
Mm-hmm.
It's also why I said, and I talked about this in another podcast, I said that I don't have any solutions. I have ideas, because once we have a solution, it stops there.
Yeah.
And I wanted to talk about the MAT program, because I know you're a big fan of it, and that's where I know in the 12-step program, and all the big book thumping 12-step crazy people, they have this idea that this is the solution. This is it. This is the end of the road. If you don't get a sponsor work steps, go to meetings, you're going to get loaded. And I think that's a horrible thing to teach. I think it's a horrible thing to say, because you're just ending right there. Mm-hmm. That's that black and white thinking. Mm-hmm. And then we ultimately have shades of gray, which is ultimately where that MAT program comes in. And I know you're a fan of it. I had an opportunity at a program, the last program I worked for, that had a MAT program. So I was the director, and I had experience in working with these individuals that were a part of it. And I got to tell you, they were some of the most amazing people to work with. And to me, they also seem more motivated than some of the other people. For me, abstinence is it. I can't do that avenue, but that's for me.
Yeah.
And that's not something that I'm going to tell anybody that this is what you have to do. Maybe there's another route. Maybe there's another, remember we were hearing the statistics of 40% of people in recovery never went to rehab or a 12-step program. Mm-hmm. That is always stuck in my brain, which to me also says, I wish those people would come out and talk and say something and say, hey, this is what I did. That would be awesome, because then we would get more ideas,
right?
Of what potentially can work. And
I agree.
And so I wanted to ask you on that. What are you seeing in that? What are you seeing with the MAT program?
Oh gosh, I'm just seeing successful stories, and that's what it's about. They're staying clean off of the drugs, and that is important. And it's not a one size fits all for whether it's 12 steps or whether it's going through the rehab and then you get better that way.
Smart recovery.
Yeah, I mean there are different routes to take, and I just like MAT because, first of all, they are monitored closely. And it's a whole program. You're just not, giving them this medication. I mean, there's counseling that goes with it, which is really important. They have to have counseling, and they have to go there. What's nice about the Sublocade versus the other drugs that are, or the medications, is that it's a once a month. So it's easier for them to get to the clinic and take their medication and then, get their counseling and follow the program and do that. The Sublocade is FDA approved, and I'm just seeing so much progress with it. There was a woman that I met at the clinic recently who was homeless for years, and bless her heart, oh my gosh, she's an amazing lady, and she's doing so well. And she just has such a powerful story of being homeless for a long time, and she didn't think that there was light at the end of the tunnel, and she went on the MAT program, and she's like so grateful to Jeanette and her team, Jeanette Spivey, and she works at Saddleback Hospital and runs the MAT clinic. So as long as I'm seeing progress, I'm going to keep pushing it. And there's a bill that's up right now that we need to get signatures. It's SB 854.
And what is it?
Going to make it so there's barriers. You can't get on the MAT program immediately, and there's those barriers that are stopping you from, the insurance that they have to approve and all these things that you have to go through, the channels. And when they ask for help, you know how that goes. They can change their mind immediately. And so every second really counts. Every minute counts with them when they want help. They should get it. They should receive it right then and there and get them on it and get them started instead of having to wait for approval. So I'm all for MAT, medication-assisted treatment, and I am not for having somebody go on Suboxone and just say, here you go, take Suboxone, and good luck.
They need more. They definitely need more than that.
They need more than that.
Yes. I agree. I know the state of California and also the federal government, I know, is moving in that direction to utilize the MAT program and put more funding towards that, which I think is fantastic.
Yeah. And now, have you seen sober livings that are using it? And
I have not.
Because I know there's those sober livings out there that don't approve of it. And then there's those that are using it.
Yeah, the majority of sober livings are not okay with it.
They're not okay. And why is that?
Most of them are all 12-step based. And you got to remember, and this is to me one of the worst things that people do. And I've seen this over and over and over in treatment, where even when you're just talking about psychiatric meds, antidepressants, right? Where we've had clients that came in and they would see a doctor and they would get prescribed antidepressant medications, non-narcotic, and they would leave, they would go home, they would get a sponsor, and the sponsor would say, you're not clean and sober if you're on these medications, so you need to stop. And they would stop, and then they would relapse, and they would end up back in rehab. And I have heard that story so many times. And that's something that needs to end at the 12-step programs. If they really want to help people, they need to stop this idea that if you're on any kind of medication, you're not clean and sober.
I know, because here's the thing. This is a brain disease. So when you have a disease, you take medication, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't understand.
And if it's helping.
Yeah, it's a medication for their brain disease that they have, and until they get better. And they're not on it forever. They're not on it that long. I mean, they're on it until they can pick their life back up. Their brain heals and they can get a job. So there's nothing wrong with that.
I want to read something. So when I was working with the people at the MAT program, the biggest struggle they had was in the 12-step programs. Mm-hmm. They were all going to these meetings, and about half of them had a sponsor. And the sponsors would tell them, don't tell anybody, don't share this. And then when you get off the Suboxone, that will be your clean date. So they reinforce that idea. So I was the director of the program, but I would purposefully go and have groups with these clients because I really enjoyed it. And one of the things that we talked about was the idea of let's create our own, right? Let's create our own self-help program. It never kind of finalized, but I wanted to read something that we put together. I wrote this, but I got a lot of assistance with them. And it's called Healing. This was the title of the self-help program that we were going to create. Helping everyone as love is not gone. That's healing. Helping everyone as love is not gone. Healing. Was created for all people that have battled with the stigma that being clean and sober requires complete abstinence from all medications for legitimate physical and or psychiatric disorders that include harm reduction techniques. As I've been working with those on Suboxone or Subutex, a frustration has developed with people who get shunned or rejected while attending other self-help programs. We stand on helping everyone find a place in recovery that finds our goals and methods effective to reach that place of hope. Nothing in our idea is based on biases, prejudices, or discrimination and welcomes all people who are suffering from chemical dependency. We welcome and encourage a union that will stand together and provide hope as we show the world that responsible recovery requires that we take care of ourselves. Taking care of self must include our entire self, which is why we stand tall through the adversity and often damnation that we may receive. The program that we have outlined are designed to empower, lift, and inspire creativity that will drive you to achieve your vision that you pursue. Much of the assistance that is offered through other self-help organizations are based on a directive that requires, even though it is defined as a suggestion, for you to listen to another person's life experience and do what this person wants you to do. We are not against other self-help programs, nor do we disagree with the structure, support, and tools that they use because it has helped millions of people. The goal of our organization is to eliminate substance use disorder as defined by the DSM-5 and become happy, successful, and productive members of society. Some will argue that individuals on a maintenance program such as Suboxone are not clean and must remove the substance to have a successful recovery program. We disagree, since our goal is to become free of a substance abuse problem. Advancements in pharmaceutical medications have opened the doors to assist you and help you alleviate the cravings, which is the true suffering of the individual. Just as depression is treated with antidepressant medications, our suffering is helped through a technique that will eliminate the harm that can potentially be involved. Time after time, I have witnessed individuals that have disappeared from their support groups because they were told that their medication must be stopped to be clean in recovery. It is unfortunate that they followed the direction of their sponsor, who is not a doctor, and their depression or anxiety pushed them into a relapse so they could self-medicate themselves. People are dying in record numbers, and maybe it's because we aren't looking at things as they are. Stop fighting and arguing about something that has worked and will continue to work for many people. It's time that we focus on saving lives and not pushing people away because they think differently, act differently, and do things that are outside your scope of understanding and maybe even your expertise.
That's good. Yeah.
I worked on that with those clients because they were frustrated. Mm-hmm. You know, mm-hmm. They really wanted to be a part of the 12-step program. They were going to meetings. Mm-hmm. But then you get a sponsor, and this is where the kind of the hypocrisy in a sense behind it, because what do they talk about in recovery? That they want complete honesty, right? Rigorous honesty is what it's talked about. But then if you're asking for rigorous honesty, but don't tell anybody, it's sort of a hypocritical concept there, Yeah. So we are now just asking you to lie. Don't really tell us what's going on, and then you can be a part of the program, Because again, if you even look at the 12-step program, or they all say the only requirement is a desire to stop. You don't even have to be clean if you have a desire, because that's the only requirement for membership, and that's what the 12-step program states. Mm-hmm. And I know a lot of people that are on the MAT program that don't want to stay on it forever, you know, and a lot of them have gotten on it. It's helped them get through. They did it for a while, and they did get off it. And I do hear that from a lot of people, that maybe at some point in time I can get off it. I am not a fan of methadone, personally, because methadone is very difficult to get off of. But Subutex does have its withdrawal and does have it, but it's a lot easier than the methadone withdrawal.
Yeah. And then I've been talking to a doctor who's given out the Sublocade. That seems to be really working. They usually inject into the stomach, and I'm pretty sure it's once a month instead of every day. You don't have to go in every day. It's once a month. There's a commercial, actually, too, now about it. But that's what they've been using, and it's really working. Suboxone, I've had stories, with the moms and the kids, and Suboxone, being on Suboxone for a long time, and it seems like that's what they do. They're on it for a long period of time, and they're putting holes through doors and walls and acting crazy while on it. So I don't think that's the best route to take. But the Sublocade seems to be really working.
Good.
So, and Vivitrol.
Vivitrol, yes.
The Vivitrol, that's a good one. So those two. Sublocade, Vivitrol.
Yeah, I've seen some good results from Vivitrol. Mm-hmm. I had a client who could not stay clean and sober. He was in and out of rehab, and I was actually at my place in Elsinore, where we had the guy that came into the program, and he got on that, and he actually completed the program. He didn't actually want to leave. We kind of had to boot him out at some point.
Oh, geez.
But from my understanding, he's still doing great.
Oh, that's good. And the thing about it is, I know a lot of the people are on both. They're on heroin and meth. And the meth, or they start using meth, if they're on these medications. And the medications don't work for meth, but their brains are changing now because they're on the Vivitrol or the Sublocade, and they're getting the counseling, and they're going through this program to stay off heroin, right? And now they're feeling better about themselves, and their self-esteem is getting better, and they don't want to go the meth route. They don't want to do that because they're trying to get clean. So there's a lot of positive that is coming out of this, and they're not using other drugs. So
yeah, it's fantastic.
It is. Anything to stop those cravings, because, for one thing.
And that is the suffering.
And the issue here is they're not able to stay in treatment long enough, because the 99% of people that call me for help don't have insurance.
And if they do, insurance isn't paying very long.
And even if they do, so these places are only keeping them maybe 30 days, maybe 60, maybe.
Even sometimes. I mean, the insurance companies, and, we could probably definitely say it's some of the rehab's fault for this because of all the stuff that went on. But the insurance companies don't want to pay anymore.
No,
and even the money that they are paying is hard to even keep a place open. When I was even out there, we were in some of the people, we were getting like $300 a day. I mean, and we were only a 6-bed place. Mm-hmm. It's hard to be able to staff a place and keep it open with that kind of money. Yeah.
So a lot of these young adults aren't in treatment that long enough for their brains to heal. So that's a huge problem. That's why we have that vicious circle of relapse, because their brains aren't healed yet. They're going to use eventually after they leave, because
the aftercare is the biggest downfall.
Yeah.
Because there's no real structure. There's nothing. They, and some of them go into a sober living, home for a period of time, and then they're out the door, and there's still that's what we really have to look at. Mm-hmm. Is to figure out how can we follow people more when they leave treatment, to give them more assistance to ultimately reach the place to where we're not needed anymore. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the goal behind it, is to eventually make us not needed and unimportant, because they can now do it themselves.
Sure. Yeah.
But that is absolutely the downfall of the industry. There's no aftercare.
There is no aftercare, and there's no funding, and there's just there's a lot of help. There's not a lot of help for this, when you think about it. I mean, our government, even the celebrities with all the money that have gone through all these drugs and are in recovery themselves, Elton John, and there's so many, we could talk about, that have the money that can put it out there and try to help these kids. And, I don't see it. And it's just really sad to me. They got right on this coronavirus right away, and,
with the amount of people that have died, we've lost probably 10 times that amount of people from drug overdoses during this period of time.
Yes, we have. Yes. So.
I've actually been trying to get a hold of our governor and sending messages because I really want to look at our educational system. I want to redefine the prevention type stuff and figuring out things that we can do to make it more effective because so much of the stuff is not effective.
Right.
Just say no.
And we want to reach them before they start. That's so important because, reach them before they start. Because once they do start, and then it could be a very long road.
I say in my book, too, that, and this is really where I'm trying to help remove the hatred and the shame, is the fact that what drug users are seeking is nothing different than what you and I are seeking. And what is that? To feel good. We just want to feel good, right? We want to have some kind of maybe meaning in our life, some kind of purpose in our life. And I don't think there's enough assistance, especially when you're talking about kids, because kids don't know anything. They think they know everything, but they don't really understand, and need the assistance to figure out, how they can ultimately find that. And I just don't think there's any direction in that avenue. And there doesn't seem to be much of a care by most most politicians.
No, unless it's in their family. It's really scary on the streets, with all the fake Xanax that's being sold with fentanyl laced in everything. It's laced in cocaine. Horrible. It's laced in the meth. I know. It's really, really scary. So we just don't want them to lose hope. As long as you're walking, talking, and breathing, there's hope. So for those that are out there that want, that are struggling on the streets and they think that they're hopeless and they think that they can't get help, that's not true. There's always help for them. It may be difficult, to try to find a place, but don't give up on yourself. Fight it, work on it until you find a place. And you will find a place that will help you. You'll find somebody that will help you, but don't give up on yourself, I mean, that's the thing. It's like they just kind of say, oh, well, and they think nobody cares. And that's not true either. Their family do care about them, but they have to want it. They have to want it.
Absolutely. So. And I'll say this on here too. It's like, if anybody's out there and listening and needing help, you can always send me a message. I can look into it and see if there's any kind of assistance that I can find. My email address is recoveryecosystem@gmail.com. And so I can definitely see what I can do to help.
That's awesome. And same with me. My website, overtakenlives.org. And speaking of Overtaken, the documentary that Christine and I produced is in schools across the nation. It's part of the health curriculum and health classes, a great lesson plan that goes with it. And it's in rehabs and DUI classes. And it's on YouTube. So if anybody wants to educate themselves, the parents out there, they need to, also be educated and be aware of what these drugs do and know that this can happen to any family. One of the reasons why it was produced is because of the stigma that is out there still today. But the stigma, they have to realize that this can happen to anybody at any time. And my son Jared broke his collarbone dirt biking. He was almost 17, and the doctor gave him Vicodin. The nurse gave him Vicodin. Called me up and said, I have your son here in the hospital. He broke his collarbone. He's in pain, and I'm going to give him Vicodin. I said, okay, thank you. Not knowing what Vicodin really was. Not knowing that Vicodin is heroin in a pill and how addictive it is. And Jared took to it, and he didn't stop. And that was the pill that led to Oxycontin, and then it led to oxymorphone. So Vicodin was very addictive.
Yeah, usually when people start drugs, they start innocently. I don't know anybody that started drugs saying, I want to just go out and screw up my life today. But it usually is. It's very innocent. It's small. call, it's usually interested and say, hey, I want to just try this. See if it's, and sadly, unfortunately, it does destroy many lives. And my motto, and I always say too, is no matter where you've been or what you've done, you can do anything you want if you're willing to fight for it. We can definitely relate that to hope.
Yes. Well, Eric, again, you got to tell the world what your book is called, because everybody should read this book. It's amazing. It's powerful. It's such an inspiration. And if Eric can be healthy and be happy today, so can you after what he's gone through. So what's the name of your book?
It's called Pain, Failure, and Misery Are the Stepping Stones to Success. And I know it's a long name.
That's okay.
Pain, failure, and misery are the stepping stones to success. Yeah, I definitely have been through a lot, with drugs and addiction. And anybody out there struggling with drugs, we're all the same. There's really nothing different. Some of us maybe have gone a little crazier than others, but we're all the same. And
you really felt like
I can do it.
Yeah,
you can do it.
There was a light at the end of the tunnel for you.
Yes. And it took a fight. And that's kind of really where that motto for me came from, is no matter where you've been or what you've done, you can do anything you want if you're willing to fight for it. Mm-hmm. And while on drugs, you're not going to see that. And that's the scary part. And that's the hard part.
That is the hard part. You don't see that. That is so true.
In my book, with all those arrests that I had, and after the third arrest in 4 months or whatever, and I talk about it in my book where I did go and I'd contacted one of my old counselors, and I knew I was in trouble. I mean, who gets arrested, bails out, gets arrested, bails out, gets arrested. Most people are like, okay, I get arrested, and it's like, all right, maybe I should do something. But that stuff just consumed me, And I remember going to that counselor and telling him, the situation that happened, and his response was, "You're fucked." and I was thinking, like, I already knew that. Is there anything else you can give me, And so he wrote down some detox places that I could go to, and I literally walked out the door, crumpled it up, and threw it away. And that's the hard part is how do you get beyond that part? And it did for me. It took getting locked up and being held down, and I made that decision. That was kind of the funny thing, was after the fourth arrest in that 6-month period, I made that decision that I'm gonna change. I'm gonna do it. I even told the task force, that was arresting me. I said, all right, I'm done, and I was in my mind. I'm thinking like, that's it. And so I went to jail and slept for off and on for 4 or 5 days. But once I got up, that suffering, that craving consumed, and that I'm done switched over to no, I'm not done yet. I gotta get out of here. The cravings were so powerful. And that's the scary part, because when I said I was done, I believed it. I meant it. But that suffering kicked in, and I called my dad just to see if he'd give me $1,000 so I could post bail again. And my dad goes, no. He's like, I'm glad you're there. At least I know you're safe. I did not like that response at that time, but today I can definitely say that was the best thing in the world for me. Everybody I knew was either dead, in prison, or in rehab. I was the lone person, in a motel room. I just couldn't figure out a way to stop. And you almost think like, I can't. That's the scary part, is that your mind tells you that I can't. Yeah. But the reality is we can. I mean, it's really kind of a stupid idea when you think about it. Like, I can't. Yes, you can. I mean, I've been off drugs before. You can, but that's what your mind's telling you. It's that I'm going to die if I don't have it, between a rock and a hard place. Yeah. If I keep going, I know I'm going to die, because I weighed 130 pounds. Yeah. And I'm 6'3". And I knew that if I kept going the way I was going, I was going to die. It was just a matter of time. But I also truly believed that if I didn't have it, I was going to die. That's what I believe.
That's what so many of them believe. That's what they do believe. They do want to get clean, but they have that I can't in their head.
Yeah, if anybody is listening to this and that's in that spot, please send me an email. Yeah. I'd love to talk to anybody that's going through that.
Oh, thank you. I know some that are going through it.
And I'd love to have them come out here,
Yeah.
And even if they're high and they're interested.
Yeah. That'd be amazing, actually. Thank you.
That would be really fantastic. I'd love to do.
Right now, who I'm going to call after I leave here.
I'd love to do a podcast with them. They're willing to talk about it, because to me, that's what's so important, is that we need to start discussing this stuff. We need to talk about this stuff.
Yeah.
We need to remove the shame. There's no hatred. There's no shame. I'm the most non-judgmental person in the world, and I don't have any shame in my game. That's why I really don't, because I'm going to tell you something funny. So I've been trying so hard to get in touch with the governor, right?
Good luck.
Oh yeah, I have sent so many messages, right? And then I was one time I was going, I'm going to apply for a job. So I pulled up a application. I filled it all out and everything, and then it comes to, have you ever been arrested? And I laid out everything,
Oh my gosh!
Of course, I never got a call, but I literally was like, I just thought it would, I don't know. I'm a 6-time convicted felon.
Did you write that?
Yes.
Did you get the job?
No. I didn't even get an interview.
You didn't even get a phone call back.
But it was just kind of, to me, I'm just thinking, I'm sending all these messages, and I mean, why can't I get, send me an email, I don't want to talk to you.
Yeah.
Something. Give me something. I mean, because again, I don't have any solutions, but I got a lot of ideas. And that's the things that I'm really trying to get out there.
Yeah, people need ideas. We need ideas. All the ideas, the better. We need a lot of ideas from you. I'm sure you have a lot, Eric. I know you do.
I do have a lot of ideas.
Oh my
gosh. All the years, and that's, for me, it's like, I'm an expert. I don't know if you call, whatever.
I think you are. You're an expert.
I did drugs for a lot of years, and then at the same time, I got clean, had 11 years, and then I relapsed, which was another huge lesson for me. It was an amazing lesson for me, though, because I transformed that into something that has become extremely powerful for me. Through all of those experiences and working with all the clients that I've worked with over all the years, I learned from them. I'm a teacher and I'm a student, and if I always stay a student, then I'm always going to learn something.
I like that. Yeah, exactly. I know that's where my knowledge comes, is from hearing all these stories that I've been told too. So
I want to thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
This has actually really been fantastic.
Yeah, I've been wanting to do this, but with this coronavirus, I've been sick, and for a second I thought maybe I had it, but I didn't.
And just for everybody to know out there, we are 6 feet away.
6 feet away. Yeah, definitely 6 feet away. So while I was coughing the last 2 weeks, I was like, Eric, no, I'm not going to come do this. But I did talk to a doctor at one point, and he's like, you don't have it. I'm okay. That's good. So I'm much better. I'm all better. But yeah, we are keeping our distance.
Yes.
That's important. But I really appreciate you having me on today and what you're doing. And you are an inspiration, and I love this podcast. And I can't wait to listen. I'm
still trying to get followers, and
okay.
So maybe you can help me get some followers.
Absolutely, I'll do that for sure. So I support you completely. So
I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you.
You've, like I said, you've been an inspiration to me. You've always been this, like I said, it really is amazing, that transforming concept, for you to go through what you had to go through and to be able to stand up tall and do what you have done.
Eric, it's been 10 years. January 8th was 10 years, and I can't believe it. It's like, sometimes it feels like yesterday, and then other times it feels like longer, much longer than 10 years. And, I get my signs from above. I get signs from Jared and from God.
I see your stuff on bees.
Bees.
Well, what is that? What is that?
Yeah, don't ever kill a bee. The bees are powerful and bring a smile to my face. Bees started the day it happened to Jared, when he passed away, and his brother held a vigil on the corner, and there were posters there that his friends were signing, and on one of the posters was a bee. It was there all day, and Blake thought that was really unusual, and it didn't fly away. It was there all day. Next morning, Blake and I walked over to pick up the posters, and the bee was still there. and it was alive, and then it flew away. So from that day on, the day that Jared passed away, that bee was there, and bees were landing in our, in our house numerous times, and on us, and in our cars, and all over. We're seeing all these bees. So somebody asked me why bees, and I'm actually a florist, and so that's probably why the bees are there. But anyway, I have many more, thousands actually. I could write a book about all the signals from above, and they are very, very powerful. And so for those non-believers out there, you must believe and know that God is here watching you, with you, and I have gotten those signs at the most unbelievable moments. Unbelievable. So I am proof that my son's happy, and that now, see, there I go. I am proof that Jared's watching what I'm doing and wants me to do what I'm doing. And Jared and God together, it's really powerful. That's all I have to say. So
in our backyard, we have a patio, and we had one day a huge bee nest that was forming in our cabinet.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it was huge. You open the door, and it was just a ball of bees.
Oh my gosh.
So we did call a bee person, but they weren't ones that killed them.
Oh.
So they sucked them in.
Oh, good.
And then they take them to a place that stores bees.
Yeah. Soon after it happened, there was this huge problem right across. We don't have homes where I live across the street. It's just a hillside, and there were millions of bees there. And so the bee guy came, in his whole full uniform, the bee man. And I look at his shirt and his tag on the name of his shirt, and his son has struggled with addiction and knew my son from high school, and that was a crazy sign right there.
Yeah.
But anyway, wow.
Again, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
And I definitely want to do something, have these people contact me. And I just want to have your normal people who we were talking about earlier, not the movie stars and the
yeah,
but the people that really
plenty of people that will inspire, and I know so many of them, so they're going to be contacting you for
Absolutely.
Sure. Thank you.
You can have them call me. You have my number, so.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And thank you, everybody, for listening. And this is another episode of Recovering Through Highness.